All right, everybody. Sony Interactive Entertainment presents some horns. Santa Monica Studio created this very Lord of the Rings sounding intro. Loading graphic. It's good. Okay. So immediately the Norse runes. And then whatever this is. So this is our title screen. This is God of War. As you saw, Santa Monica Studios. This is a big, expensive game. A big, expensive, console-exclusive video game. There is a lot of money behind this game. A ton of money. And a lot of big talent. And this is the very first thing that we have access to. And there's, like, a lot of confusing shit going on here. I'm excited. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious thing on this screen. The thing that I think clearly pulls us right to it, and that's over there, not Kratos' groin. It's the golden handprint. So my eye is immediately drawn to the gold handprint because it's the only thing on the screen that's that color. The other thing that pops is up above, again, pointing at Kratos' groin. Over there is the Omega, the God of War Omega. Now, this is interesting because the game's title screen is almost competing with itself. The title screen is saying, like, hey, this is a God of War game. Pay attention, right? Because there's the big red Omega, and we'll talk about what looks like, Jormungandr, maybe? We'll talk about the Omega and its repurposing in a second, but the hand stands out to me even more because it's part of the image, right? It's not an overlay. I do think that they're competing a little bit for attention, but that's okay. So the other thing, yeah, like Kratos' eye pulls us in that direction too, and it's great. It's great placement because that's where the menu is, right? The developer of the game wants us to look that way. Look at that corner. I'm looking. It's over there. Look at the corner of the screen. This is the thing. Grab this immediately. And they did a great job. This is a smart move. So I have no context for it. That's pretty normal in title screens. It's a glowing gold handprint. So that's interesting. But what I think is more interesting about this shot is obviously you've noticed the shaky cam. So our viewpoint of Kratos is one that is literally unstable. You'll notice also the vignetting. So vignetting meaning the dark border all the way around, which can create a sense of vertigo. It's the same visual effect that you get when you're going to pass out, right? The edges of your vision get dark, so it creates a sense of weakness and shadowiness. So there's something vulnerable about our perspective on Kratos. It makes him seem more powerful. But what's interesting in contrast to that is his pose. This is not an aggressive pose. This is not a traditionally Kratos pose, right? When we think of Kratos, and even if we didn't have any idea about the character, the game is called God of War, we would probably expect this to be a battle scene. We would probably expect this to be Kratos in mid-fight. But it doesn't look like that. It looks like that axe that he's carrying is meant to chop down this tree, not to kill a foe. Now, he's wearing an armored pauldron, I guess, but he doesn't look like he's here to fight. Notice also that his face is blurry compared to the axe, which again sort of foreshortens the scene, puts us further away from him. This is the viewpoint of an animal, of a child, of a defeated foe, but probably not, because this isn't a battle scene. Now, Kratos doesn't look like a man who is like here to chop down a tree for firewood, right? This is a man who looks like he's got something on his mind, which is interesting again for a character like Kratos, because Kratos is not a thinker. Kratos is a punch fighter. He's a thumbnail yanker. He's a harpy banger, right? So it reframes Kratos almost immediately, like right out of the get-go. Now, notice also down at the bottom of the screen, we've got fire drifting up out of view. So again, we're hiding from what's really going on. It's hard for us to know, and it creates a sense of unease. Again, tying in with the slight blurriness of Kratos' face, disconnecting us from the human element of the screen, and the vignetting and the low viewpoint. Everything about this says you are in a vulnerable position. You don't really know what's going on, and you are in a position where Kratos, the big strong man, is in control of the scene here. But he's not here to fight. Or if he was, it's done, and it was over quickly because he doesn't look like he's in the middle of a fight. So let's talk a tiny bit about the choices for the title itself, because that's also very important. Kratos is sort of looking at them. I think he's meant to be looking at the gold handprint, but he's also like, it's on the wrong side of the tree from him. So really, his eyes draw us to the top left corner of the screen. This is a trick. This is what we do when you take a photograph or you do a painting. People will look where the characters are looking. It's why you don't jam a character who's looking. Don't do this, because there's nothing to look at, right? Don't have a person whose eyes are going off screen unless you want the image to seem really unsettling. So he's looking at the title, which means we look at the title. It draws us up into the corner, and we see God of War. Now, what's great is that this is reframed because, again, I'm coming into this not as blind as I usually do in these title screens. I know that Kratos, I know his name is Kratos. I know that he's a Greek character, but this is not a Greek title screen. Nothing about this says that. Even the Omega has been repurposed to be the world serpent, Jormungandr, and we've etched runes into his surface, which is, I think, super cool. I think it's really great. It's a nice way to say, this is the game that you know. This is still God of War, it's still Kratos. Keep its brand identity, but bend it slightly to say, but now it's in a different context. And it's reinforcing that, not just by Jormungandr and the runes, but by the fact that there is a distinctly un-Greek texture to the words God of War, right? God of War retains its Greekness. Look at that A, right? The A in war. And then adds that texture on top of its spikiness to make it look a little knotwork, right? And knotwork is not a thing that we see a lot in like Greek metallurgy, or at least we don't associate it. That's very much a farther west concept. And it's reinforced, again, by the shadows on the new games and settings title. You see that? That's right, it's a lambda. Thank you. Yeah, that was the Greek letter. So that A is a lambda. The G and the R are shaped like weapons, right? They have that spiky look. I feel like every game with war in the title makes the R into a sword. But yeah, reinforcing the sort of like Celticness or Nordicness. They can get blurred in historical context. As we saw with Hellblade, we see the knotwork over a new game. And that is very much saying to us, yo, this is not your God of War. And also I think the background does a little bit of that. This is not a traditionally or stereotypically Greek scene. If you want to show people that something is set in Greece, you give them the Aegean, you give them the Mediterranean, you give them cypress trees, you give them olive trees, you create a sunny atmosphere. But again, the background of this shot feels to me much more like it fits in with that Jormungandr and with the knotwork. This is a colder place. This is not your mama's God of War. And I think that the only real criticism that I have about this title screen is that it's all questions. Right? If I had come into the franchise completely, I'm like, is this the bad guy? Do we have to fight him? Did he just try to kill us? Are we the golden-handed foe? Are we going to start this game with like a Metroid sequence where he kicks the shit out of us? Or what? Like, he strikes me as being a bit villainous, but the pose diffuses him. Right? He's not lording over us. He looks like regretful or like there's something on this dude's mind. And I gotta say, like, as frustrating or like difficult to watch as it might be, normally you wouldn't spend as long as we have on the title screen. It's highly useful having the screen sort of judder around like that in destabilizing it. This whole title screen puts us in a position of saying, I don't know what is going on. I'm not sure what is going to happen. It asked me a bunch of questions, but I couldn't tell you what this game would be about going into it if I didn't already know that we were about to chop a bunch of shit apart. But it is really interesting. It's a more peaceful title screen, or a more, I don't know, thoughtful title screen than I might normally expect from God of War. So this is God of War, Santa Monica Studio, PlayStation 4 exclusive. Let's start a new game and see what the rest of the game has to say.